Hello everyone, my name is John Bussard. I'm an HPE Solution Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support HPE servers, blade systems, storage, as well as networking technology solutions. In my videos, what I like to do is show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint and then demonstrate to you what that means within a management context. Today we're going to be continuing our discussion with HPE's Morpheus VM Essentials. If you will, it's a VMware alternative. And we're going to talk about the integrated migration tool that allows us to be able to migrate virtual machines from VMware into VM Essentials. Now, this tool has been out for a while, but within the latest release of Morpheus VM Essentials, and I'm working with 9.0 today, within their latest release, they've enhanced this tool. So with prior versions of this integrated tool, you had to inject the VirtIO drivers into the operating system. And it wasn't a simple process of just running an executable within the Windows operating system. You actually had to boot the recovery console, mount this ISO, and actually open up a command line and inject the drivers from there. And then you could perform the migration. Right, but that has changed with the new process. They'll inject the VirtIO drivers for you inside a Windows operating system. And I'm going to show you how to do this. You can do up to 20 VMs at a time, so batch migrate up to 20. Obviously, you can do fewer. The only thing you do need to be enabled inside the operating system, inside a Windows operating system, is WinRM. I'll show you how to enable that and open up the firewall rule as a part of this process. So with all that being said, let's explore this management context. All right, here I am inside Morpheus VM Essentials. And the interface we're looking at, I would say if we're making the comparison to VMware, this would be a lot like vCenter. Actually, I would say it's maybe a little bit better because we have the ability to not only manage VM Essentials environments, but also VMware environments that they can coexist inside the infrastructure. So for example, if I go under infrastructure and I see clouds here, you will see that I do have a VM Essentials environment as well as a VMware environment. Now you'll need to bring a VMware environment into this infrastructure in order to be able to perform the migration. And it's not all that hard. All you're really going to do is you're going to click Add, select VMware, click Next, and then you're going to fill out some of this. All right, and we can actually see what that looks like in my environment. So if I click Edit here, let's say I gave it a name. You can put a code in there if you want. You can enable it. You can automatically power on virtual machines. You're going to give the URL to your vCenter environment. So here's my vCenter environment up here. And you're going to tack on SDK because that's where VMware keeps its software development kit. Then you're going to log in with some credentials. You're going to select version 7 or higher. And then you're going to select your data center and your cluster. So if I go up here, we will see the data center and we'll see the cluster I'm using. And then you're going to want to put a check mark into inventory existing instances. Right. Right. So if you do this, you can click on your vCenter, your name, scroll down and see VMs. And these will all be all the VMs that'll be inside the environment. If I look up here, we can see those VMs. Now we're going to be working with these virtual machines down here. Actually, these two virtual machines I use as part of showing the old way of doing a migration, but this time we're going to use these ones because these do not have the VirtIO drivers in. And if you notice, the old version, I needed to remove VMware tools in order to get the migration to work, but you don't need to do that here. You will need to remove them after the fact, and I'll show you a little bit of how that's done because it's just not a simple uninstall. So once you have your virtual machines here, you can perform a migration with the migration tool. I'd like to make one designation though here. They don't necessarily need to be managed virtual machines by VM Essentials. For example, if I go to provisioning and instances here, you'll see that I have 2 VMware virtual machines. All right, so you don't need to go to this length in order to do the migration. This makes them fully managed within this VM Essentials environment. And to do that, what I would do is go down to Clouds, the VMware environment, VMs, and then I would select the VM and then do a convert to manage. But again, you don't need to do that to perform a migration. Now you will need to install WinRM and open up a firewall. You may already have WinRM enabled in your environment. So let's show you how that's done real quick. So within my Windows 2022 VM, I don't have the WinRM opened. So let's go do that. So I'm going to open up PowerShell. And here are the commands I'm going to log in. The first one will enable WinRM. The second one will open up the firewall. And that's all you'll need to do in order to be able to get this to be able to migrate. So let's close this on out. And let's set up my migration plan. So I'm going to go over to Tools and then Migrations. I'm going to click Add. We're going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it our migration. You're going to select your source. So if you're managing multiple vCenter environments within your infrastructure, you could select them. You'll get options on the down arrow. If you're doing multiple VM Essentials environments, you could select those as well. I've only got the one, so we'll move forward with that. All right, so these are all the virtual machines inside my VMware environment. I'm going to filter it down to VME. And I told you we're going to do these ones that don't have the VirtIO drivers in them. I'm going to click Next. These would be the resources on the VMware side. Right, and these are going to be the resources on the VM Essentials side. So how do you want to convert those on over? So my machines are using DHCP just for this example, but obviously you'd want to pick the networks that would make the most sense for you. Right, and again, the shared storage you'd want to place this virtual machine on. Your login for Windows. And if you're doing the old way of migrating, meaning you're injecting the VirtIO drivers first and removing VMware tools, you would put a check mark and skip guest tools. So it's an option for you to be able to leverage. All right, we're going to click complete. And now we have this migration plan put into place. You can see it's sitting as pending. As a matter of fact, if I go back over to Tools and Migrations, you'll see that migration exists right here. All right, so let's go run this. And we'll see down here it's changed to running. It's showing up here yet? No, let's do a refresh. And we'll see the two migrations are starting to happen. So we can see them here. We can also click on View Activity, and that'll bring us on over to history here, where we could see the migration. So I'll kick off a few jobs as a part of this migration. You'll see them listing over here. You can look at the times to get an idea of what's going on. It won't do them all at once. It'll start processing them, and it'll kind of stagger out the migrations. As a matter of fact, if I look up here, we will see that the virtual machine is being shut down, and the OVF is being exported. All right, so it's first doing the 2025 VM first, and then it'll come and do the 2022 VM. All right, so obviously this will take a little bit of time in order for this to happen. If we go down a little bit, you'll see the first virtual machine's already getting stood up. But you can look at the time down here. I don't know if I'll catch this, at the end of the migration. Obviously, I'm going to kind of pause the video and turn this back on when this is completed and show you what is done and actually remove VMware tools. So why don't we just sit here and wait for this process to kind of go through. All right, here we are mid-process, I will say. If I go look inside the vSphere environment, you could see that both of the virtual machines I put in the migration plan are shut off. You could see the export of the OVF template is completed for the 2025 machine. The 2022 machine is still migrating. Not that the jobs are done just yet. If I go over here and go to View Activity, You see they're both still working as a part of the process. All right. I go back to instances here. We scroll down. We could see this machine is actually getting powered on. All right, so let's check in on our progress. If I look over here, we could see one of the migrations. Seems like it's finished. We probably should look at view all activity. You see things are still chugging along. These are all a part of this migration process. Now I should mention that both these virtual machines are about 100 gigs in size, and obviously there is downtime in the environment, and the downtime is going to be as long as your virtual machine hard drive is big inside the environment. So just keep that in mind. If I look inside the vSphere environment, we could see both the virtual machines are powered off. We can see one of the exports is completed down below. All right, so this is moving along. If I go into provisioning and incidences, all right, I can go maybe to the 2022 VM. We can see that it's finalizing. So just be patient with the process and wait for everything to clear up, and then check on your virtual machines. So we still have a little time to go with these, but I'll come back in when we're finished here. All right, so it looks like our process has completed. We can go view all activity. We can see the things that it's done on our behalf. All right, so if you want to get an idea of how long these took, this is for the 2025. This will be for the 2022. Actually, we should probably look at these ones here. If you notice, they start at about the same time. All right, so that's about how long they took for each of these migrations to happen. So let's go over and let's look at one of these virtual machines. Right. It should be noted that if I go back in the VMware environment, it kept the original virtual machines, so you could power those back on if something didn't go as planned. So let's go look at our 2025 VM. So let's select that. Let's open a console. We'll log in. And you'll see that VMware Tools kicks off an error because it can't find its virtualized hardware. So I'm going to click OK on this. Let's go down here. Let's open up Control Panel real fast. I'm going to uninstall a program. And we can see the VirtIO driver as well as the QEMU guest agent. That's kind of like the VMware Tools alternative for this environment. But you can see VMware Tools is still installed, and that's part of our problem. Now, in Broadcom's infinite wisdom is making things easy. If you try to do an uninstall, this is actually going to crash on us. So I'm going to click yes. And you'll see it just crashed out on us. So we have to remove this. Now there's a variety of ways to actually remove VMware Tools. They're documented. You can find them on out. This is my process. So we're going to go through this. Now first you have to stop the services. So let's bring up services. We'll go down to the V's where VMware will be. And then we'll stop these. Now this one will take a little bit longer, the actual VMware Tools, and it will kick an error, but it will stop. You can see it's in a running state now. Be patient with it. It will stop. There we go. Okay, and we can see it stopped. Now we can run through these commands here. So let's open up a command line. And I'm just going to take these. This will delete the services inside Windows, so they won't start up. Again, I suppose you don't need to remove VMware tools. I don't know. It seems a little sloppy to leave them in there, but it's something you could do. So that'll stop the error. Now, just to clean up, you'll want to remove the uninstall component from when we were looking inside control panel. So we're going to open up regedit. And we're going to go to this location. So H key local machine, software, Microsoft, go into Windows, and we could find it down here. There's Windows, and then current version, and then uninstall. There it is. Now this is a little bit difficult. You kind of have to go fishing around. One of these entries will be for VMware tools. That's not it. That's right there. It is. So if I go further, you'll see that none of these will be related. So this one's for VMware tools. We're just going to delete that. And then you can clean up the folders. So we'll go into the C drive. Program files. Delete that. We'll go into common files. And then we'll delete that as well. And then we'll go into, this is a hidden folder, but we'll go into program data. And again, we'll see the VMware folder, and I'll get rid of this. Then if I reboot this VM and we'll log back in, you'll see that we won't get that error. And we'll see that in control panel, it'll be cleared up. All right, so let's log back in. We'll go back to control panel. And we'll see VMware Tools doesn't exist down here. And if I open up services, and if we scroll down to the V's again, you'll see there's no VMware services in here. So I'm sure there's other ways to kind of get rid of that, but that's the route that I chose. So that's the complete process for using the migration tool to migrate your virtual machines from VMware into VM Essentials. Like I had mentioned before, that these were about 100 gig virtual machines that I migrated. So certainly plan accordingly in your environment. There will be some downtime as far as this migration is concerned. That downtime will take as long as your virtual machine is big. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and please stay tuned for more videos.